Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
There are fundamentally two types of people in politics. Those who want to be something, and those who want to do something. And I've always been a person that's wanted to do something.
Nigel Farage, Brexit campaigner, disruptor, and now UK political leader who could be Prime Minister.
Do you know what? The rank, the title, the position doesn't interest me at all. Doesn't interest me in the least. I couldn't care less about it. What interests me is what you can do with it.
From Bloomberg Weekend, this is the Mishal Husain Show. I'm Mishal Husain. Welcome back. Remember the moment when the UK voted to leave the EU? It's nearly 10 years ago now. And one of the figures right at the forefront of that was Nigel Farage.
The sun has risen on an independent United Kingdom.
Mr. Brexit, indeed, to many people. You might have thought that that was a career peak, an end of the road. They'd achieved what they set out to do. For him, though, it was the start of something new, something bigger, it now seems, because he and his party Reform UK have been having an extraordinary time in the opinion polls in Britain. These are polls of voting intention, and for months now, Reform has enjoyed a sustained poll lead over the two parties which have dominated British governments for the last century, Labour and the Conservatives. Now, an election isn't due in the UK for another 4 years, but if this kind of poll lead was to be maintained, Nigel Farage has a very good chance of being the next UK Prime Minister. Farage is someone who has been very good at spotting political undercurrents. He did that with Brexit. He's done that in the US, in being close to Donald Trump for a long time, understanding in many countries, I think, what's bubbling under the surface and what other people might not see. So he is worth paying attention to. He's someone also who is very recognisable. He's a big persona. People stop him in the street, want to have their picture taken with him, call him by his first name. He's regularly pictured having a pint in the pub. Now, I knew this was going to be a tough conversation in many ways. He's combative. He's someone who you have to fact check to the best of your ability. And I think you'll get a sense of the tone really right from the start of this. But really what I wanted to do in this conversation is understand what makes him tick and reveal really what kind of Prime Minister he might be. You'll hear us talk about his immigration policies, about the accusation that he is soft on national security, what he reads, whether he would govern for the whole country. And because he has used the words "make Britain great again," ask him what period he looks to in Britain's past. We started, though, in the present. Welcome, Nigel Farage.
Thank you.
How are you?
All right. Yes, but I mean, life is busy.
Well, I want to start with a sense of the moment, actually, because I'm conscious that you are in the midst of a remarkable few months where your party has been leading in the opinion polls in a sustained way, which is why if there was an election today, and we don't really have that kind of system in the UK, but if there was an election today, you look likely to become Prime Minister.
Election tomorrow, we'd win easily. But the trouble is, it's a marathon. To the next election, we've hit the 13-mile mark and we're a mile ahead. So it's a good thing. We've done what we've done, but there's a long way to go. Well,
but also on you personally, the idea of being Prime Minister, are you properly adjusted to this idea? Because most people see you, this is what you're known for, campaigner, disruptor, someone who brings change from the outside. Actually leading for the whole country is a very different thing.
Yeah, that's the point. We now need change from the inside. We've not had enough change. We are atrophying as a country. We're declining economically, we're declining societally, we're declining culturally. People are leaving. We're in real trouble. So we now need a disruptor, not from the outside to change perceptions, but from the inside to actually change things.
But you've only
Am I ready for it? Yes.
You've only been an MP for a year. So
I've been in politics for 30 years.
Yes.
I was in the European Parliament for over 2 decades. I led a group in the European Parliament for over 10 years. I've got a lot more experience than Keir Starmer or many of the other prime ministers we've had in the recent
political
years.
experience, but not governing experience. You've never been part of government. You did once say that you couldn't imagine having a seat around the cabinet table, that it was not something that attracted you.
Do you know what? The rank, the title, the position doesn't interest me at all. Doesn't interest me in the least. I couldn't care less about it. What interests me is what you can do with it. And there are fundamentally two types of people in politics. Those who want to be something, those who want to do something. And I've always been a person that's wanted to do something. In the past, what I've done is help change public opinion, help shift national debate. I'm now moving that on to the next logical stage.
Yeah, but I still wonder about the kind of work that is involved in delivering for a country as the Prime Minister. It involves sitting there with the red boxes, going through the official government papers.
What do you think I've been doing for the last 25 years? Building.
Well, no, but you haven't been going through civil service papers every day. It is different.
I'm the only living human being in this country who has built political movements on a table like this with a telephone, a piece of paper and a pencil. I can build things. I can do things. My track record says that.
Okay, so you're ready for it. It is the job that you want to do.
Yes, I mean, look, it's clearly an enormous job, and the scale of the problems that we face, the institutional barriers that'll get put before us. I do understand all of that. I'll tell you what, if we don't do this, then by 2035, I shudder to think what this country will be like. So we have to do this.
But would you govern for all? Because you're not known as someone who brings people together. You're known as someone who chooses their issues, campaigns very hard on them, who's often predicted and made the political weather. But you're not a unifier. Doesn't a Prime Minister have to be that?
Well, I think we've had too many unifiers, and look where consensus politics has got us. Look at the mess it's got us into.
So you would govern as a divisive figure?
You'd govern as a majority government. You'd govern on a radical manifesto that says the country needs fundamental reform. And of course, some people won't like it, but that's the way it is.
Well, we'll talk about the ways that you would reform. It is the name of your party, but it's also what you want to do. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to go back in time, first of all, because you're recording with us here in our studios in the heart of the City of London, a place you know well.
Absolutely.
You used to be a commodities trader, a metals trader. How formative was that experience to who you are today? Yeah,
my father was a stockbroker for over half a century. My grandfather was a stockbroker for over half a century. So a lot of our family had worked, in fact, on both sides, in the city. I was here in the 80s. I was here in that transformative period where, let's be frank, what was a bit of an old boys club, through Big Bang became an international global centre.
Deregulation, the city in its heyday, if you like.
Opening up, innovative.
Thatcher's time?
It was Thatcher's time. Yeah,
And you were a Thatcherite?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, back then I was. But I mean, bear in mind, we're talking 40 years ago. There were a different set of economic problems. We didn't have the social problems in Thatcher's time that we've got now. That's one aspect of life that's worse. So I was here when, kind of by the middle, late 80s. I mean, it was the most exciting, incredible and fun place to be.
We did have social problems, though. A lot of people got left behind in that period, and some of them are supporting your party today.
There were mining communities who had a very bleak time. They, by the way, had an even bleaker time in John Major's years when we unnecessarily closed pits. But what I mean is we were all British. There was a much bigger sense of togetherness despite the economic division than there is in the country today.
And this has been a theme of what you've been saying. Essentially, you look on migration as the source of all the country's ills.
Well, that's a ridiculous thing to say. But
you just pointed that we were more British in the period you're looking at.
We have all sorts of problems. We have massive economic problems now, falling GDP per capita being perhaps top of the list, although very rarely talked about in Westminster. Yes, there were divisions then. You're absolutely right. But the social problems that we face today are worse. Look, I think about the city was, I can remember when the phone rang that it occasionally was Paris, occasionally was Frankfurt, but much more likely to be Singapore or Santiago. This was a global trading centre, and I couldn't understand.
The City of London is still a global trading centre.
Far less than it was. And I couldn't understand the political obsession with our next door neighbours, the little backyard market called Europe. Oh, yes, it's a big market, blah, 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 but it's 15% of global GDP. So really, when I saw the Single European Act coming in 86, I thought, well, what are we doing? And then I saw the British establishment preparing for us to join the euro. 1990, we joined the exchange rate mechanism.
And then had to crash out of it 2 years later because
which I
the pegging
predicted,
to the Deutschmark
which I
didn't
predicted.
work.
Yep, I predicted it. The very night we joined, I was in a bar just over there saying this will never, ever work. And this is what really got me into politics. I couldn't understand. What I saw in my day-to-day life here and what I saw government doing were two very different things.
So it was there's a direct link then between Brexit and your work in the city.
Absolutely.
Here in the 1980s and 1990s. You came here at the age of 18, actually, straight out of school. When you look at Brexit today and what has happened in the last 9 years, and you say that it's a poorer country today than it was, do you think it was worth having the referendum in 2016?
Do I think freedom's worth it? Yes, absolutely. Do I think self-governance is worth it? Yes, of course I do. Do I think the ability to control your borders is worth having? Yes, I do. Now, have we exercised it? No.
But that's why I asked the question, was it worth having it in 2016, the vote, given what we know now?
Well,
Sterling has never recovered its value. Business investment, which was rising,
Sterling's been falling
has
for decades.
has stalled since that.
No, I mean, look, even as Keir Starmer himself says, the deep-seated economic problems within the country predate Brexit, even predate the pandemic. And our response to it, our productivity problems being perhaps just one very, very good example. I am angry that a Conservative government with a whopping great majority didn't take advantage of it.
And you think you could have done better if you were Prime Minister then?
Miles better. And I hate to see what's happening in the city.
So then, if you were Prime Minister, and I can ask you this question because of the way the polls are looking right now. So today, if you became Prime Minister, would you rip up the treaty, the agreement that Keir Starmer made with the EU earlier this year?
Well, the whole treaty is up for renegotiation anyway. It's a very poor treaty. We can do a lot better than that. We'll have to play hardball. If you play hardball, you have to mean it. That's the art of
negotiation. I've heard this before.
Yeah, but from whom?
Well, I've heard this before from Conservatives, not from people in your party, but from people who believed in Brexit.
They didn't believe in it. They never believed it. They never, Michelle, they never believed in it.
Let's just go back to what you would do then.
They belatedly accepted Brexit because if they hadn't, they would have faced political extinction.
So if Brexit has never been done properly, you as Prime Minister would reshape our relationship with the EU?
What
do you mean?
If Brexit hadn't happened, the reason I'm here...
No, I mean, if you were Prime Minister, what would you do with the current alignment that we have with the EU on many areas?
Well, look, we've been weak as hell. We've given in, we've expected favours in return. We haven't got any. It needs a tough renegotiation. And ultimately, even though we've got huge economic problems, they've got some pretty serious problems too. In fact, the French have an even bigger, not just economic, but constitutional crisis as well. Yeah, giving away our fish for the next 12 years. Things like that. Completely outrageous. Total betrayal of what people voted for. But the focus, and yes, trade with Europe's important. Of course it is. But the real focus has to be what's happening internally within the UK economy.
So you would rip up the Keir Starmer agreement with the EU, I think you're saying. It needs a rethink. Okay, but
all Starmer has done is make concessions in return.
Nigel Farage, that means you would be taking an economic risk right now. And that's and you have been known all your life for taking risks, right? It's in your book.
Everything in life's about risk.
And that
life is about...
You pride yourself on being a gambler. Can I read these words to you?
Entrepreneurship's about risk.
I love a gamble. Yeah. I love stacking up the odds. And it's only been through taking enormous risks that the party and I have got to where we are today. Is that the kind of Prime Minister you would be, a risk-taking Prime Minister?
We need far more risk-taking. And by the way, much more broad in the Prime Minister, we need to encourage risk-taking in the economy.
So you take a risk with the relationship with the nearest neighbour, the big geography that puts this big market on our door. You take a risk with that in the interest of a greater good.
When you're in a bad relationship, you have to take risks to reshape it.
So how would you reshape it? You'd end alignment. Is that what you're saying?
Alignment's catastrophic.
So you'd end it?
Catastrophic, moronic.
You'd end alignment with the EU if you were Prime Minister.
Is keeping us firmly hooked back in the 20th century, not in the 21st. It makes no sense at all from any angle.
Is that a yes to the question I've asked? You would end alignment with the EU
100% plus.
Okay. So this is the point. So you're still a risk taker. You were in your years as a trader in the city, and you're still going to govern in that way if you were elected Prime Minister. I know you had two really traumatic experiences as a very young man. You were hit by a car and you ended up spending 2 months in hospital, and you were then diagnosed with testicular cancer when you're in your early 20s. There's another, and I know you said that this is part of why you decided you needed to do things with your life.
Yeah.
But there's a different way that story could have gone, which is that you conserve your energy and you prioritize your family and you think of all that's close to you. Instead, you had 2 failed marriages. And
it's called living. It's called living.
And you campaigned around the country.
Look, I could be a boring so-and-so like most people in politics. I'm not. I've lived. I've had some huge successes. I've had some massive failures. I'm 61. I've got a vast experience of life. I've seen the good times. I've seen the bad times. I've seen success. I've seen failure. I think that makes me better qualified to be a leader than those that have lived steady, what I might describe as boring lives.
So what have been your big failures?
Well, I've made mistakes personally, obviously. I've had successes too, but I've made mistakes financially. And look, I've lived the big dipper of life, but I've in the end been very lucky. I'm still here. I'm still alive, despite a couple of goes at not being. I think that's given me a couple of things. Number one, a pretty rounded life. And number two, I'm not actually frightened of anything. And that, I think, is a very, very valuable asset, given what I may well be facing in 2 or 3 years' time.
So let's talk about your political instincts then. Can you take those headphones? Because I want to play you something that you said at CPAC, the big conservative political conference earlier on this year. You've been close to the American right for a long time, so you go to these conferences. And this is what you said in February 2025.
Suddenly, post-November the 5th, America is optimistic. It's upbeat. It's the beginning of the golden age in America. In fact, in many ways,
That's
what
not all
we're
of it.
fighting for
Keep listening.
is a very similar agenda to the one that you've just fought for and the one that you have just succeeded with. You're going to make America great again, and we in turn will make Britain great again. Thank you.
Well,
hang on. I've got wait for my question, which is that you use these words, make Britain great again. And I know that you have a sense of history, and I know the past is important to you.
And fun.
Sense of fun.
Is that? Yeah. Say make Britain great again to an American audience who've just elected a president, or make America great again is quite funny.
So you didn't mean it?
Of course I meant it, but
so, that's what I want to understand. What you mean by it, because you have got a sense of history. I know your grandparents talked to you a lot about the past.
I do.
Your grandfather had been wounded in the First World War.
That's true.
What story did they tell you about Britain's past? What is it that you think of when you think of when Britain was great?
We had a stable society. We had belief, things that bound us, perhaps religion being one of them. And by the way, government can't force people to believe, but there was a shared sense of religion.
Are you a man of faith?
Community. Yes. I mean, I have to say, struggling a bit.
Do you go to church?
Well, of course. I mean, I'm an Anglican. It's been a catastrophe for 25 years.
What, the Church of England?
Oh, terrible. Absolutely awful.
So you believe, but there's no church that you feel like attending?
Well, if I was a more regular churchgoer, I probably would have defected to the Catholics.
But
I probably would have done. I haven't. I've thought about it a couple of times. No, I think a sense of community, a sense of family. I mean, frankly, the values around the meaning of family, community, country, those things were much stronger in years that have gone by.
Which years? Which is the decade you're looking at? That's what I'm curious about. When you say the words, when Britain was great, what is in your mind?
Well,
which is the decade?
Britain was great imperially. Britain was great industrially. Britain was great in terms of innovation. Britain was great in terms, actually, in many ways, I think, of taking some very good things to large parts of the world. Britain was great in leaving behind some amazing legacies.
Yeah,
Australia,
those are
New Zealand,
issues. I'm wondering
Singapore.
about what period. When you look to the past, are you thinking about the 1980s and the period you were in the city?
Really,
or are you thinking about the First World War and Britain as a great power?
I think really what we did since 1688. I think we were actually fortunate to have our civil war.
But we're not going to go back to the 17th
Well, you
century,
asked me.
are
I'm just giving I've just given you an answer.
As a political leader, when you think of when you want Britain to go back to, because you want to make Britain great again, what are you looking to as the model?
I don't want Britain to go back anywhere. I want Britain to go forwards, and that's really the point. And it's one of the reasons why, I've been very critical of the governor of the Bank of England, very critical of much of our economic policy. I think we are stuck in a rut. I think we're stuck with an old, out-of-touch globalist mindset about so many things. No. You can respect your traditions. You can respect your past. You can have a sense and a feeling of what history is. I'm not going back anywhere. I want us to be in the 21st century. We're not there. We're literally, but here we are sitting. I mean, I can see St. Paul's as I'm talking to you. We're in the middle of the city of London. We have a revolution going on, a money revolution going on with digital assets, cryptocurrency. It's real. It's growing very, very quickly. And what's happening here? Nothing. Literally nothing. And I think
these are untested ideas in government, aren't they? I know you were talking the other day about wanting to have a national cryptocurrency reserve.
I'm really sorry.
We don't know what that looks like.
No, because we're years and years behind the rest of the world. Go to Miami. Go to Miami. Fly to Miami tonight. And you tomorrow morning can go out and buy everything from a Starbucks coffee to a Ferrari with a card that you've loaded up from an ATM in the street with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other currencies. And the world is changing and we're not changing.
So if you think the Bank of England...
And if you think about it, there's one more point. Think about it. Actually, we have been great innovators. Whether it's the Industrial Revolution, whether it's the nuclear energy industry, which we led the world in just a few decades ago, we're very, very inventive. We're very creative. We're naturally a very entrepreneurial country. I just believe we've lost a sense of all of that.
So the Bank of England, if you think they're so out of step with where their focus should be, in your view, would you revoke their independence as Prime Minister?
Well, I think the bigger mistake was taking away banking regulation from an organisation that had been doing it since 1694, gave it to a bunch of tick box bureaucrats down in Canary Wharf.
Do you mean the Financial Conduct Authority?
Yeah, look at that.
So would you disband that?
They are useless. They are utterly useless. We need a complete...
Would you do away with them?
We need a radical rethink of what they are, what they're for, who they serve, what their purpose is.
Isn't the truth, though, you don't really... It's not a question of who does the regulation. I think you instinctively don't like regulation or red tape. You see it as a hindrance.
No, actually...
And other people might see it as the things that protect us from wrongdoing.
Actually, you're
wrong. Mistakes.
Actually, you're wrong. You're wrong because my argument with crypto, with digital assets, is we need a regulated market. Again, you go back there to the medieval times. It was all about having a basic framework of rules that consumers and market users can trust. So I'm not against regulation. I'm not a complete, laissez-faire merchant, but you have to get that balance right.
But I think you are saying, as Prime Minister, you are signalling that you'd be prepared to do away with the Financial Conduct Authority.
I think
you would give those powers back to the Bank of England?
I think we need a complete radical rethink, yes, on many of these things. And the FCA has been a total failure.
Would you sack Andrew Bailey as Governor of the Bank of England?
I was debanked. Debanked. I was rejected by 10 other banks. I was literally being frozen out of the financial system to the point I might have had to leave the country, which indeed is what they wanted.
And luckily, that became a big issue. And,
luckily...
You got your accounts back.
Well, luckily, I'm big enough and ugly enough to fight my own corner. But there are thousands of people out there who've been debanked because of excessive rules on anti-money laundering directives or whatever else it may be, who've got no voice for themselves.
And what about the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey?
Well, he's a nice enough bloke. But
would he keep his job if you were Prime Minister?
Well, he's had a good run. We might find someone new.
Really?
He's had a good run.
So you are signalling you'd be prepared to sack him?
I'm just saying...
This is shades of President Trump and the Federal Reserve.
If Andrew Bailey wants to get with the 21st century, and by the way, there's one encouraging thing, because I went to see him last month. He just put a limit on the number of stable coins any individual can hold. I said, Andrew, this is ridiculous. This is dinosaur-like. Within a week, he changed it. So maybe he was listening. But the Bank of England, the British government, the regulator, whatever shape that takes, they've all got to understand that the world is changing, has changed very, very rapidly.
Okay. So the world has changed, not just the financial world, the world more broadly. And if you were Prime Minister, you'd have to have opinions and take advice and formulate policy on a whole host of areas which you're not known for talking about.
Such as? Come on.
Social care, how you'd fill vacancies in the social care sector, and national security. And there are people in the political establishment, Labour figures, Conservative figures, including Boris Johnson, who think that you and your party are soft on Russia.
Oh, poor old Boris. I feel sorry for him, really. I guess if you failed that much, you have to lash out at somebody. Look, I mean, this is, of course, politics and narratives, isn't it? You know, just because 13 years ago, I said in an interview, I thought Putin was a very effective political operator, but not a nice human being. Suddenly you're a Putin supporter. Funny enough, the year after I said that, the Queen met him. Now, whether she was seen to be a collaborator, I don't know.
I think it's more than that. I think the accusations
ridiculous.
come from the fact that you've said things in the past like you think NATO... How do you know what I'm going to say? You've suggested that NATO provoked Putin into invading Ukraine.
The endless eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union, and Kissinger warned about this years ago. We shouldn't have done it. But that's in the past. We did it. Putin's invaded. I was really hoping that Trump could bring Putin to heel and that some kind of compromise could be struck, as it's just been recently struck with Gaza and Israel. Clearly, that is not going to happen. Obviously, Putin is a very bad dude. Simple.
Why hasn't President Trump put more pressure on him?
Oh, he's putting huge pressure on. He's putting pressure on India. He's putting pressure on... And I think...
What about Putin himself?
I think Trump feels that Putin has made a fool of him. And clearly, Putin is not a rational man. He wants to come to a logical deal. So the idea that I'm soft on this is just nonsense.
Well, what put fire under the accusations was very recently when the former leader of your party in Wales, Nathan Gill, pleaded guilty to 8 counts of bribery, taking money from someone described as a pawn of the Russian secret services.
Yeah, appalling. And he will go to prison for a long time. At least I hope he does.
He was the leader of your party in Wales.
For 3 weeks he was.
But hang on, he's been involved with UKIP, your former party. He was involved with Brexit, the Brexit party, your former party. He's been at your side for years.
I've known him for 25 years. He was unbelievably, you perhaps don't know this, a bishop in the Mormon church. I mean, God-fearing to a level I've almost never met. I mean, so uncorrupted, I thought he wouldn't even drink coffee. And there he was, taking money to ask questions. Appalling.
Is it just one bad apple? That's what I want to ask.
Without any shadow of a doubt.
You can assure voters that there is no one else like Nathan Gill in Reform's ranks.
If I even suspected it, they wouldn't be let through the door.
And you're sure that no one else has taken money from those kinds of Russian sources?
I'm sure that my mother's not a mass murderer.
There's nothing.
I'm as sure as that. I mean, how can you be sure of anything in life?
Well,
the question itself is a stupid question. You didn't know. The question itself is a stupid question. You know that and I know that. I believe 100% with all my heart there's nobody else.
Can I just quickly then understand your instincts on Russia a bit more fully with a few scenarios? So if you were prime minister and Russian jets entered NATO airspace, where do you stand on that? Do you think they should be...
Got to shoot them down.
No questions. Whatever that does, however much that inflames tensions.
Listen, love, you're trying
Russia needs to be taught a lesson.
Listen, love, you're trying ever so hard. I'm the only person in the world, I think, that stood up in the European Parliament in 2014. And do you know what I said? There will be a war in Ukraine. It's coming. I'm the only person that got it right. I might have made one comment once, 13 years ago, that said I admired him as a political operator, but not as a human being, and I'd never live in Russia. Period.
Okay. Russian frozen assets should be used to help fight the war in Ukraine.
You can go on as long as you like. I've made the position perfectly clear.
No, what's the answer to that? They would be frozen assets.
They're in Belgium.
So they should be used.
You better ask the Belgian government, but clearly if they're there through illegal means they should be
So
used.
your instincts as British Prime Minister?
My instinct is I think Putin's a really bad bloke and you can sit me here for an hour. You're going to get nowhere.
You'd put British troops on the ground in post-war Ukraine after a ceasefire?
I'd be very cautious about doing that. Might put a UN force. Would I put the British Army badged as a British Army? Be deeply, deeply thoughtful about that.
Because you'd be worried about them being a target for the Russians?
I'd be deeply thoughtful about doing that. And it wouldn't be a clever thing to do.
You see, exactly that kind of thing is what gives... Hearing something caveated
in that way is what gives
Russia courage.
You are quite right. I'm not a warmonger. Rather like President Trump, I'm not a warmonger. Those that went before have been persistent warmongers. I'm not. I happen to think that what the UN did in Korea was remarkable and still over 70 years on has held, and South Korea has become the most incredible country, which, by the way, does things far better than we do in terms of building nuclear energy and much else. That would be the right way to go forward.
So let's talk about areas then where your agenda, as you said in that clip we heard a moment ago, where your agenda is similar to the Trump administration's. For example, on migration.
Yeah.
Both your party and President Trump's Republicans feel very strongly
amazing.
about that.
What he's done's amazing.
So would you want ICE-style raids taking place here to deport the 600,000 people in 5 years that you want to deport?
I think it's real. Let's see, this is, again, I was with Tom Homan, who was his border czar a few weeks ago, to try and find out what's really going on in America. It's really interesting. Border crossings are down 97% since Trump came to power. But the interesting thing is about deportations. So they have 1,000 ICE squads out around America, knocking on doors, saying you're here illegally. And you've got two choices. Number one, you can go, we'll fund your return, we'll give you a few dollars, we'll say to you that you can legally, if you want, apply for a skills visa in the years to come back to America. And if we think you're going to be a productive member of the economy and of society, we'll let you in.
Is that what you want? The ICE raids are done by masked, armed men who jump out of vehicles, grab people in the street,
your media
and
narrative.
go into workplaces.
I've just told you what's happening. And what is really interesting...
They do have masks, don't they? And guns. And they do go into workplaces.
I would hope, actually...
And homes.
If they didn't have guns, they'd be mad.
Would you want that here? That's really, because this interview is about what you would do as Prime Minister.
Do you know how many people have voluntarily left America in 8 months? 1.6 million. It is truly remarkable. 1.6 million people have peacefully, with incentives, not just to leave, but potential.
I want to understand what lessons you're taking for the UK from
What I'm
that.
learning is, if you do things well and do things properly, it can be highly effective.
So is that a yes to ICE-style raids in the UK?
Look, we're not America. We'll do it our way, not the American.
So what does our way involve the army?
Our way will involve Border Force doing the job that they would so desperately like to do.
That's the job they do now.
No, they don't do that.
How would it be different? Would you use the army?
No, at the moment, Border Force are a taxi service and they hate it.
So would you use the army?
They absolutely hate doing what they're doing, which is why so many people resign. Sad.
Saving people essentially in the channel and bringing them to shore.
You may see it that way.
Is that what you mean by the No, that's what I mean. I think that's what you're referring to when you say the taxi service.
French Navy, bring them across. French Navy, bring them across. Escort them all the way. Border Force pick them up, bring them in. They chuck their passports in the sea. They chuck their phones in the sea, and we're supposed to just put up with it.
But I think what's really important is to understand how, because the numbers you've said you would deport are really significant, 600,000 over 5 years, which is why I'm interested in the methods.
Look, I think the truth is that most people who are caught, who are in Britain illegally, if we do it nicely and do it properly, will accept they have to go.
It's about 9,000 a year currently. And to meet your target, you'd be increasing that by 10 times.
Yeah,
do you think you can?
I think we can. Of course, theory, reality, being in government, I get all of that. I understand all of that. Is it doable? Yes. But there is a very important message here. In most countries in the world, if you enter illegally, you are chucked in prison. Literally, in a majority of countries in the world, illegal entry means immediate imprisonment.
So is that what you do? People would arrive and they would be put in prison immediately, detain.
Well, that's what I didn't say it. You said it. That's fine. You said
what
it.
Do you say?
You said it. That's fine. I'm not playing games. People would be detained and deported. Dead simple.
In prison?
There are plenty of ex-military bases we can keep them. But the point, look, it's very interesting. Australia had all this. In 2012, they stopped it within a fortnight. Within a fortnight, no one came illegally. You know why? They were towed back to Indonesia. It can be done. It's about political will. It's about being tough for a short period of time. It can be done. It can be done.
You've got a big pledge also to cut significant amounts of government waste. I know you're rethinking your economic plans, but there is a figure
Not the broad principles.
Not the broad principles. Well, what about the amounts? It says in this from last year that you would cut waste by the tune, government waste, to save £50 billion a year. Is that still?
Yeah, that was about.
That's still the plan.
That was about. Yeah, actually, we'd probably go further than that. I mean,
you get more than £50 billion a
Millet
year.
in Argentina has shown that you can do it, but you have to work out doing it, what the cost of that is.
Elon Musk discovered that he couldn't cut nearly as much as he hoped to. Initially, he said $2 trillion.
To be fair, Millet
he had to halve that, and then it went.
To be fair, Millet has. But look, we're test bedding this in the local councils that we won last May. Well, we've cut about $500 million so far. It's a very good start in 6 months.
What happens if you are elected to government and you're prime minister and you find out that you can't find the savings you want? You're in the process of rethinking your economic policy because you had all kinds of tax cutting plans which are now having to be rethought. Is that because they were unworkable? Net
zero, 30 billion saved, cutbacks in civil service, tens of billions saved. But of course, the big one, and the thing that I've got to think out far more fully, is the whole explosion of disability payments.
And you are in the midst of having serious things. What I want to ask you is that people said about your plans to spend and to tax cuts that they were unworkable and they were fantasy economics. And the fact that you're having to rethink them suggests
I'm not rethinking them.
They were right.
I suspect what we come back will be a lot more radical than what you saw there.
More radical in which way? More tax cuts or more austerity?
As I said to you before I came and did this, I'm going to be laying out some economic stuff between now and the budget in terms of speeches. What is for certain? I tell you what is for certain with the economy. And we touched on this right at the beginning. We touched on this place in the 80s, but we could go more broadly across the country in the 80s. There was an attitudinal change towards work, towards having a go, towards risk, which I'm pro. I'm very pro-risk. I'm very pro-individuals taking risk. I don't believe we should protect people from themselves. We should allow them to go out and have a go. We need an attitudinal change towards success, towards money, towards business, towards tax and incentives. And this is stuff that you can't necessarily write in a manifesto.
Well, you're going to have to, though, aren't you?
No, you can't. You can't. Attitudinal stuff, you cannot write.
This one was called a contract, and there are promises in it that don't stand anymore.
You've been at the BBC all your life. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about attitudinal change within society. You can't put any of that in manifestos. Okay. It's about a buzz. It's about a vibe. Yeah. It's about how a country feels. And one of the reasons, and you played that tape to me earlier, what is interesting about Trump's America, and there are bits of it you can dislike or like or whatever. What is interesting about Trump's America is a lot more people in America are having a go. They're setting up companies. They're borrowing money. They're taking risk. We need to get to that place. And as I say, you can't put it in a piece of paper. And the one thing I'm certain of...
So you're going to have to inspire people, aren't you?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Which takes me back to where I started, that are you going to be someone who brings people together? Because you're known for turning the fire on people. You're not known for being someone who appeals right across the country and has a common message everyone can get behind.
I don't think that's fair. I think,
So give me an inspirational message. What is great about Britain today?
Even in my time in the European Parliament, where perhaps I achieved some level of infamy, was I turning my fire on people? No, I was just teasing them. They were turning their fire on me. I mean, we just had a party conference season where the levels of insightful abuse that have come from Starmer and his cabinet are off the scale. I've never behaved like that, not with anybody. I might have strong opinions. I might express what I believe in strongly, what I'm against very strongly. I don't think, if you look through my political career, that you will find personal invective. You will find teasing and not much more than that. We have to have a vibe, a buzz that says to young people, setting up businesses, taking risk, even having failures along the way is a good thing, not a bad thing. And you know something? I might succeed, I might fail. I accept that.
Yeah, but
I'm going to have a go.
If you don't succeed as Prime Minister, it's not the same as your personal success. That's about the fortunes of the country that are riding on that. You're going to need more than a vibe.
Well, I think the two are the same thing. We're in that much trouble. What,
you as one man and the vibe you create could save the country?
There's a whole movement here now. And you've seen, and I'm sitting talking to you. I don't do many interviews these days. I allow others to go and do it. There's a much broader range of talent, that has come on the scene for the party. We're building a mass membership very rapidly.
You see, I know you're a risk taker, but I think the moment of real risk that exists for your party right now is that you've had this sustained period where you've been rising in the opinion polls while you've been making big promises on spending, on big tax cuts. And now you're at a point where you're having to rethink your economic policy and it's probably going to be much more like
we're going to make
the realities
we're going to
that
make bigger
other
promises.
Parties face.
We're going to make even bigger promises.
That's not the signals that your people in your party are setting out. They're saying you're going to have a fully costed manifesto.
We're having a full rethink
you're
of
facing
everything.
the same realities that other parties do.
Well, look, we're in government.
Maybe you're
now.
not special.
We're in government now. We're in government now in the counties.
Local government.
You know, we're going to do our damnedest to be in government in Wales next May. We may or may not succeed, but we're going to do our damnedest. And we'll have to be judged by what we do. I accept that.
So is Donald Trump a role model for you, for government?
In terms of standing up for the national interest above all else, yes. In terms of keeping promises that he made to the electorate, yes. There are many other areas in which we might disagree or might do things
Which
differently.
are the areas that you disagree?
There are other areas we might disagree, social policy, etc. We might see things differently. But the fundamentalism of Trump is you tell the electorate, I'm going to do X, and you actually do it. And that's what he's doing. And, and we might look at, you and I could sit here over a cup of tea and talk about some of the tariff machinations and say to ourselves, what the hell's going on? And we could, go back to the 30s and think about tariffs and damage it's done to the economy, etc.
Do you think he's damaging the American economy?
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
But you don't like the
tariffs.
No.
Listen to me. It's irrelevant. He promised the American public he'd use tariffs as a weapon. He's doing it. So is he to a large extent restoring faith in the democratic system? Yes. And we will have to, if we succeed, and there's a long way to go, as I said to you earlier, we're halfway through the marathon. If we succeed, we must do the same. Because one of the reasons why reform is doing so well is there is a complete breakdown of trust. No one believes a blooming thing the other parties say.
I think you could be part of that breakdown of trust, because this document, which said our contract with you, it's a contract with the voters. It's the document you stood on last year.
I didn't write it. I inherited it, to be fair.
You were the party leader standing on the top. Your face is right there on the front.
I came in after it was published, to be fair. And we changed the front page. But look, are the principles right within it? Yes. Can we?
Yeah, but there are numbers in it. It's put forward as a contract. You're talking about a breakdown of trust, and you've been part of a breakdown of trust, haven't you? By going back on this?
Have you seen what the Conservatives have done?
This is your interview.
Hang on a sec.
This is your interview.
Hang on a sec.
If you complain about a breakdown of trust, don't you have to stick to your promises?
I stick to, I would like nobody in Britain to pay income tax until they earn £20,000 a year.
And when do you think you'll be able to deliver that in government?
I will answer that over the course of the next few weeks. Not today, as I told you before I came on here. But do I want to honour that? Yes. Is it realistic immediately we're in government? No. And those circumstances are changed. Are the principles, aspirations, and even the numbers that are set out there wrong? No, they're not. They're right. But it's all about getting things in the right order.
Nigel Farage, this is the Bloomberg weekend interview. Mm-hmm. I wondered if you get one these days, because you are more in demand than ever before. According to your team, you're meeting presidents, prime ministers, and kings from the Middle East these days.
I wouldn't comment on that particularly, but
kings from the Middle East.
I can't remember, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't. Do you know why?
Is this inaccurate that you're meeting presidents, prime ministers, and kings from the Middle East?
Do you know what? One of the reasons I've survived so long in public life is I'm very discreet, and if I have private meetings with people, I never discuss it.
It's one of your senior supporters and donors who said this.
Well, I don't know who he is or she is, but
Nick Candy.
I wouldn't comment on it. All right, I wouldn't comment on it. I don't comment on things like that, and people trust me because of that. I keep confidences.
But you are in circles you haven't been in before.
That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, that is fair. Yeah, I think a lot of people around the world think we are going to win the next election, just because people that like this country, see what a mess it's got itself into.
See, it's a long haul, because technically it's not due for another 4 years, and the current government has a large majority. Yeah. Do you think you can sustain the level of engagement you'd need to still be in this position in 4 years' time? You're not really known for... You stuck at the idea of wanting to be out of the European Union, but you've had a number of different parties over the years.
I stuck at it more than anybody. I've been doing this since 1993. Did I finally retire on the 31st of January 2020? Yes, I did. That was it. I was done with it. I came back into politics last year. It was probably the toughest decision of my life. I turned 60 last year. Life pretty settled, some good jobs, a company being quite successful in a variety of areas, first couple of grandkids born. Life was pretty good. So I knew I was making a big sacrifice coming back into it. and I'm determined to make it a success. And I think I've been very, we talk about persistent, but I've generally been pretty consistent in the kind of values and views and beliefs that I've had. And can I sustain it for 4 years? Yep, it's a long haul, but yeah. Can the government sustain it for 4 years? I think very unlikely. And I think, just as you've seen reform take over the centre-right of British politics, I think there's a massive change on the left about to come. And I think that the government will be forced by 27 into a genuine austerity budget. I mean, a real austerity budget. Just the markets, are going to demand that. And I suspect at that moment, the left of British politics splits in a very, very dramatic way. And I think the growth of the Greens, the Corbynites, the sort of urban left of politics, those who vote on Gaza and religion more than British issues, all of those things, I think they will struggle to see out 27.
That's why you think there'll be a general election then?
I do, yeah.
Okay. I want to know what sustains you. Is it true you read constantly?
I do read a lot. Yeah, I do read a lot.
What are you reading at the moment?
Well, the last book I read was Mr. Balfour's Poodle, which was about the constitutional crisis between the Commons and the Lords.
In the early 20th century?
Yeah, the principles are exactly the same. And by the way, the Salisbury Convention has been there since 1911. And
why were you interested in that?
Because say we get elected on a manifesto to say we're going to do X, Y, and Z. What if the House of Lords were to block us? What if the civil service were to block us? These are all the things that we're thinking and going through at the moment.
You're going back 100 years to try and find the answers to that.
Principles don't change over centuries.
What else are you reading?
Over centuries, principles don't change.
I heard you like poetry.
Yeah, I like a little bit of poetry. I wouldn't say hugely. I like biography. I like history. My current book, which I've really barely started, is written by the former Prime Minister of Armenia. And it's about how small states can survive in a big wide world. Sarkisyan is his name, who wrote it.
So everything you're reading is kind of part of your homework, if you like, for government. Is that the case? What do you do to actually put your head in a different place?
Yeah, I mean, I like to go out and walk when I get time. I like to fish. I like a day at the races. I like the odd day at the cricket. There are things I enjoy doing. No, the truth is, I mean, look, we are living in a 24/7 media environment. I am a political entrepreneur, even though I'm trying to shed responsibilities of the party. For the moment, I'm still the main entry point for most new people that want to give money or stand as candidates. And so most of my life these days, believe it or not, is focusing on what's beneath the bonnet, focusing on the structure of the party, focusing on the funding of the party, focusing on making sure that across all the regions of the United Kingdom, we're prepared. And I just sort of say this to you, sort of towards the end, that I don't think anyone's yet really understood. Next May the 6th next year, is the British equivalent of the midterms in America. These are elections of a magnitude and a significance that almost nobody yet understands.
To close, I want to go back to where I began and the kind of person you're known for and the kind of person you'd have to be if you're to be a great Prime Minister. What would you say to someone who worries that you might deport their grandmother or you might not be a leader for them because they are not white or they're Muslim? What would you say to them? There are people who think that. Give me a message for them.
I would say the question's beneath you, but I would also say this. The only people that call me racist tend to be called Jocasta and have gone to St Mary's Ascot and be upper middle class and very snobby.
Is that your answer to someone who'd be worried about you as a Prime Minister?
If people are worried,
what is your message of unity? Do you have one?
Our message for unity is if you're in this country legally, whether you've been here for one generation or 150 generations, if you're paying your taxes, obeying the law, being part of our community, recognizing there is commonality between all of us, whilst we're different, things that we share, you're incredibly welcome. But are we here to be the dumping ground of the world? Are we here to be the food bank of the world? Are we here to have uncontrolled mass illegal immigration, changing our culture, endangering women on our streets? No, on that we're going to get really, really tough. And I think you'll be very, very surprised how many people from all different backgrounds and religions from all over the world support that message and want that as the country that they've either been born into or chosen to live in.
Nigel Farage, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's the Mishal Husain Show for this week. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to leave us a comment while you're there, I'm told that's a good thing. If you'd like to see my conversation with Nigel Farage, you'll find the video online. And at bloomberg.com/weekend, you'll find the written version of this interview with a portrait of Nigel Farage and my notes, why I asked what I did and the context around it. The Mishal Husain Show is produced by Jessica Beck and Chris Martlew. Guest booking by Dave Warren. Social media by Alex Morgan. Our sound engineers are Blake Maples and Kyle Murdoch. Our video editors are Laura Francis and Toby Babalola. Our executive producer is Louisa Lewis. Brendan Francis Newnham is editorial director of audio and special projects for Bloomberg Weekend. Catherine Bell is the executive editor of Weekend. Our music is composed by Bart Warshaw, and we'd also like to thank Will Shaw, Alana Susnow, Victoria Wakely, Adam Blenford, Summer Sadi, and Sage Bauman. And thank you for listening. Come back next weekend.